You wake up in the middle of the night and your heart is beating faster than usual. In the dream you saw someone who hasn't been around for a long time. Maybe it was your mother, or grandfather, or the brother you lost many years ago. But they were there, alive, real with that same look, voice, touch. The dream is over, but the feeling remains, as if they really came. Why? You are not alone. Millions of people around the world have at least once in their lives seen deceased loved ones in dreams. For some, it's a comfort. For others, anxiety. Some believe it's just memory at work. Others, that it's a sign. But what if the truth is deeper? Edgar Cayce, the famous American clairvoyant of the 20th century, believed that dreams involving the dead are not hallucinations or coincidences. They are real meetings. Moreover, they may carry a message, or a warning, or a clue. But to understand the meaning, one must first understand the mechanism. Cayce asserted that consciousness is not limited to the body. After death, the physical shell is gone, but the soul remains, alive, active, aware. It transitions into another form of existence, which he called the spiritual level. And it is from there, he said, that souls can make contact with the living, most often through dreams. Why dreams specifically? Because in that moment, our rational mind weakens. The guard drops. We don't think with logic, we perceive. Cayce said, in dreams a channel opens, connecting the physical and spiritual. It's a window, and sometimes, for special reasons, those who have passed look through it. But what makes the soul return? Cayce didn't view this as ghosts in the traditional sense. He said souls return for 3 reasons: love, incompletion, and warning. Sometimes you see a deceased parent because they miss you, because there's still a strong emotional bond between you. The soul feels this pull and responds. In the dream, you might hug, talk, be together. This is not fantasy, this is healing. Both you, a soul in a body, and the soul without a body need that contact. Sometimes the soul appears because it has unfinished business. Maybe there was no forgiveness, or pain was left behind, or important words were never said. And then, according to Cayce, the spirit may come again and again until it completes what was started. The dream is an opportunity to close an old door, to say, I'm sorry, or I love you, even if you didn't manage to do it during life. And there are cases when the deceased comes in a dream with a warning. Cayce spoke of numerous examples where people saw warning dreams from the departed about illness, catastrophe, or danger. This is not a frightening message from beyond, but care. A soul already beyond time sees more, and if permitted by the laws of vibration and karma, it intervenes. But not all dreams are the same. Not every image of the deceased is contact. Cayce emphasized, a soul is recognized not by logic but by inner resonance. If you wake from a dream with a sense of peace, love, light, it was a meeting. But if the dream is disturbing, murky, brings fear, it may be just a projection of your own fears, not real contact. Sometimes people asked Cayce directly, how can I tell a real contact from a trick of the mind? And he would always reply, a true meeting always leaves a feeling of peace and light. Even if the message was unsettling, it brings clarity, not chaos. It's not like an ordinary dream, where everything is abstract and illogical. It feels like you were really there, like a memory, not a dream. He also explained that not all souls can come, and not always. There are specific levels between worlds, specific vibrations. A soul can connect with the living only when the frequencies align. If you are in a state of intense stress, anger, pride, the channel is closed. But if you are open, if you are in grief or in silence, then contact is possible. Many people told Cayce how after a dream with the deceased, they began to change. Someone unexpectedly forgave old resentments. Someone began to live differently. Someone overcame the fear of death. He said, "When we realize that the soul is alive, we stop being afraid, and we start living more deeply." But there are other cases, when the dreams repeat, when the deceased comes again and again, and says nothing, or speaks in riddles, or just watches, silently. These dreams are especially unsettling. Cayce explained, sometimes the soul cannot speak directly, then it uses symbols, then what you feel after the dream becomes more important than the dream itself. He advised, after such a dream, sit down and write it out. Don't try to understand with the mind, just write down everything you remember. Then look, what resonates, what touched you, what repeats. It's like decoding. The message may be encoded in a gesture, an object, a place, but the soul, especially if it was close to you, will always find a way to reach you. Interestingly, Cayce warned, you should not try too hard to have such dreams. This is not a toy, not magic. It is sacred. If you summon the departed out of ego or fear, nothing will come. Or the wrong thing may come. He said, the best dreams come when the heart is open, but the mind is humble. He also mentioned so-called transition dreams. These are dreams in which the deceased leads you somewhere, across a bridge, along a path, through a tunnel. In such cases, Cayce said, the soul of the deceased temporarily becomes a guide. Perhaps at that moment, you are standing at an important threshold, spiritual, karmic, emotional, and he or she came to support you. One man told of seeing his wife, who had died 8 years earlier. She was standing in a garden and just smiling. He woke up in tears, and the next day he decided to quit a job he hated. He said, I realized she didn't come for nothing. I felt she wanted me to live, not just exist. Edgar Cayce emphasized that when the deceased appear in dreams, it is not an intrusion, it is an invitation, a sign that there is a connection between worlds. He called it the bridge of vibrations, and this bridge becomes stronger when there was a strong emotional bond between souls during life, love, gratitude, and unfinished conversation. These feelings do not disappear after death. They continue to resonate, like music no one turned off. Many people asked, what if it's not someone close, but a distant relative or someone I barely knew? Why would they appear? Cayce said, all connections, even forgotten ones, matter. Sometimes a soul comes not for you, but through you, to deliver something to the family, or to help you remember a part of yourself. He insisted, no such dream is random. Even if you didn't understand it, it was needed. Sometimes a soul comes to ask. Yes, to ask. For prayer. For forgiveness. To be released. Cayce explained that some souls become stuck between worlds, not because of sins, but because of ties that were not resolved. Resentments, guilt, fear. And sometimes only the love of the living can help the soul break free. He told the story of a young man who kept seeing his grandfather in a dream, standing on the threshold and never entering, just watching and silent. The young man was frightened, thinking it was a bad omen. But Cayce said, he is just waiting. You need to tell him you forgive him. After that, the dreams changed. The grandfather entered, embraced him, and never appeared again. Only a gentle sense of peace remained. But perhaps the most powerful dreams are those after which you wake up with a sense that something inside has changed. You can't explain it, but you know that you didn't just see an image, you touched something real. Cayce called it soul memory, and he said that sometimes this is how the soul begins to awaken. He advised not to fear such dreams, not to run from them, but instead to open up. Keep a journal. Pray, not as a ritual, but as an inner dialogue, and pay attention to signs during the day. Because sometimes the dream's continuation doesn't come at night, but in someone else's words, in music, in a scent, in a moment when suddenly everything becomes clear. Cayce said, "A dream with the deceased is not just an experience, it is a gift, a letter from a world where time works differently, and in that letter is a hint, a clue, support. So maybe you didn't just have a dream. Maybe it was a meeting, an opportunity, a window. And the question is not only what they want to say, but whether you are ready to hear it." Cayce often repeated, "Death is not the end, but a change of form." And that is precisely why our deceased relatives continue to care about us. They are not cut off from our reality. They are simply on another level of vibration. It's like radio stations. We don't see them, but they exist. And in dreams, when our mind quiets down, we can tune into their frequency. One of the most intriguing aspects of Cayce's teachings is the idea that sometimes the deceased come not to say something but just to be, simply to be present. Their purpose is to give us the sense that we are not alone. He asserted that during difficult times in life, losses, illnesses, internal crises, we are especially likely to dream of grandmothers, mothers, fathers, those who loved us deeply. Their appearance is not a ghost, it is an act of love, but here lies a danger as well. Cayce warned, not all dreams are the same. He divided them into 3 categories. The first, dreams from the subconscious. These are reflections of our thoughts, fears, memories. The second, dreams from the soul. These are the true encounters. And the third, dreams from external spiritual entities, not always benevolent. That is why he advised not to get too carried away interpreting dreams on your own, but first and foremost, to work on the state of your heart. Purity of intention is the best protection. He also emphasized, if after a dream you feel lighter, brighter, if you wake up with a sense of meaning or love, then it was a true dream, a real encounter. But if you are left with anxiety, emptiness, fear, it is possibly a reflection of inner tension, not a message. Sometimes, Cayce said, the soul of the deceased may transmit an image, a symbol, or a phrase in a dream, the meaning of which you will only understand years later. And this is one of the mysteries of spiritual communication. Eternity is in no rush. It does not hand out instructions like a recipe book. It whispers, it hints, it lets you feel. He said that the human soul is a magnet that attracts spiritual impressions, and if you are open, if you do not drive away everything related to death out of fear, you become a conduit, not a medium in the theatrical sense, but a true bridge between worlds. And then your dreams become not just memories, but part of the soul's journey. Cayce even suggested that some deceased appear not to just one person, but to several at once, in different forms, to remind the family we are still one, we are still connected, and if you remember, we are alive. He often ended his readings with the phrase, "We meet without saying goodbye," and added, "Dreams are proof that love is stronger than time." But perhaps the most important question is, why do they come? Why to you? Why at this particular time in your life? Edgar Cayce believed, each such encounter is an invitation, sometimes to healing, sometimes to forgiveness, sometimes to help you remember who you truly are. Because the death of a loved one is not just a loss, it is a mirror. Through pain and longing, a person's soul begins to search for answers that once seemed unnecessary. It is often death that becomes the catalyst for spiritual awakening. And then, when your inner compass falters, when life loses its familiar rhythm, that very figure appears in a dream. A smiling grandmother, a silent father, a friend who left too soon. They come not with reproach, they come with presence, with love, with a reminder that everything has meaning. Cayce shared stories of people who changed their lives after such dreams. Some began healing others, some returned to a long-abandoned pursuit, some simply forgave and let go of old resentment. He said, "The soul speaks to us in the language we are ready to hear. Sometimes it's words, sometimes just an image, sometimes silence in a dream." One of the key points of his teaching was, we are never alone. Even in the darkest hour, there are those nearby who remember us, who have been waiting for us to listen. And if you dream of deceased relatives, it's not a reason to fear. It's a sign that the connection is alive, that the lesson continues, that love does not die. But Cayce was also a pragmatist. He did not propose blind belief. He advised keeping a dream journal, to write everything down, even if it seemed strange or meaningless, because sometimes only in time does it become clear that that image, that word or gaze, was a key. He said, "The memory of the soul is delicate. It needs care, like a flower, and dreams are the water that help it unfold." He also emphasized, dreams are only one path of communication, but if you are open, if you are attentive, they can become true revelations, bridges between worlds, a map by which you remember your true self. And so, perhaps next time when you see someone who has passed, you will not wake up in fear, but remain in the silence and ask, what did you want to tell me? What am I supposed to understand? What within me is in need of healing? Because Cayce believed, dreams are not echoes of the past, they are reminders of the eternal, and each such dream is a step, not away from the world, but toward yourself. Edgar Cayce once said, "A dream is a sacred pause in which the soul steps beyond the boundaries of time, and it is in this pause, when the mind retreats and the heart opens, that those we believed to be lost forever may come to us." But there is another layer to this phenomenon. Sometimes deceased relatives appear not just as comfort or a sign of love, sometimes as a warning. Cayce noted, souls, especially of those who were deeply connected to you in life, can arrive in dreams to guide, warn, or push you toward action. There were cases when a person had a dream in which the deceased said, "Don't go there. Call Mom. Take care of yourself." And later, these words saved them from trouble. He asserted that in the spiritual realm, there are no coincidences. And if someone comes to you in dreams again and again, it is not by chance. It means that the connection is active, that you are being watched over, and that what is expected of you is not fear, but awareness. The soul never intrudes. It waits for your consent to contact. So if you notice recurring dreams, images, names, don't dismiss them. Write them down. Reflect. Listen. Another interesting point Cayce made, in dreams we are not just passive observers. In dreams we are participants. There things are possible that did not happen in life. There you can say, "I'm sorry." There you can embrace. There you can ask what you never had the chance to. And often these dreams become deeply healing, because the soul feels completion, and this affects not only the inner state, but also the body and actions. Many who experience deep loss told Cayce, after a dream with the deceased, it was as if a weight had lifted. Insomnia disappeared, panic attacks subsided, the taste for life returned. And he said, That is the purpose of these encounters, not to frighten, but to release, not to tie you to the past, but to remind you that love continues to live, even beyond life's edge. Cayce strongly recommended not confusing such dreams with ordinary fantasies. A true contact, he said, always leaves an aftertaste. It may be peace or tears, but with a sense of warmth. It may be silence, as if something has settled into place, but never anxiety or fear. If you woke up with a sense of meaning and you heard your soul, and so if someone who has passed appears to you again, maybe it's enough to just sit down in the morning and say out loud, "I remember you. I hear you. Thank you." This is not magic. This is contact. This is care, the kind that never ends. Edgar Cayce believed that the human soul does not die. It travels, learns, returns, and continues to love. And that means your encounters are not over. They've simply changed form. And sometimes a single dream can tell you more than an entire book.